team of what can only be described as dream thieves led by Cobb have an extraordinary job that involves penetrating the minds of their targets within their dream state in order to steal their secrets. Their current mission turns sour and they become fugitives, having to go underground to avoid the consequence of their failure. A way back to their normal lives is offered in the form of an extraordinary job that will involve influencing Robert Fisher, the son of a mega-rich and powerful tycoon, who is soon to inherit his father's company. And somehow they must make him want to disband his global energy empire by performing an Inception, a covert action of inserting an idea into his mind. The idea that they have to plant seems simple but is fraught with difficulties, and the only way to complete the mission is to execute a complex series of inceptions that will not only need to be subtle, but it will require them to go deeper into the mind than anyone has attempted before. And as the mission is increasingly complicated by Fisher's mental defences, Cobb's own past comes in to present an increasing risk to their objective, and in a high-stakes cat-and-mouse game the team must use every trick in the book, and then a few, to succeed. Inception is a complex story. Very quickly there are several threads running at once, and everything right down to the nature of their reality is called into question. The dizzying nature of the movie is framed by the dreamscapes that the team work in. The idea of setting a story in a dream is of course not new, but what Inception brings to the table, though, is probably one of the most mature and notably overt explorations of dreaming, reality and fantasy and consciousness that I've seen from a big-budget movie. DiCaprio provides a strong anchor for the story. It's always his character's story that's central to the narrative, with the events of the Inception mission as the rosebud of the film, and this holds the film back from running away with outrageous ideas and getting lost in the possibilities of a dream world. The dialogue and events constantly provide uncertainty as to Cobb's perception, and there's a constant guessing game as to whether his reality is any more real than that of the minds he intrudes upon. And don't worry, this is no more of a spoiler than the trailer offers up, and it's just describing the undertone of the story that carries through the entire film. Inception is undeniably spectacular, particularly in terms of visual imagery, though thankfully it never seems to lose itself in that spectacle. The zero-G fight scene in particular is incredible. It's eye-popping and mind-blowing, and still manages not to be frivolous as other films that would use these kind of scenes would be, usually as a showcase for effects. The most obvious parallel will of course be to the Matrix films. Now while that's an understandable comparison given some of the themes and imageries, I can't stress enough how much better Inception is at focusing on the ideas it explores and uses. Where the Matrix strings together a series of set pieces and fancy shots interspersed with, in my opinion, a rather sporadic and often vacuous torrent of seemingly random and incoherent philosophy, Inception manages for the most part to keep its head and to take its time, not only to explain what's going on, but to link to common experiences that everyone can grasp. That's where this film hands down beats The Matrix in terms of involving the audience. A babble of incoherent and random philosophy doesn't dominate the film. In its place is a much more lucid and coherent progression of ideas and common experiences that drive the story along. It tackles the concepts in a way that remains high-minded, but without becoming pretentious. Where this film does drop a few points, though, is during the third act, where the conceit, the idea of traversing deeper levels of dreams, becomes rather overplayed. It all becomes a bit overwhelming, and I found myself becoming jaded to the idea. The protagonists descend deeper into the dream world to the point that I just got frustrated with the feeling that the idea was being overstretched and the progress was being stalled. The final sequence becomes rather cluttered and all too busy as we jump from one level to the next and then bounce between them, seeing the events on multiple levels. This for me, though, was the only major flaw of the film. It feels like there was too much going on in that sequence for the narrative to handle. You get a few seconds in one level, then flash to another, then another. It feels like it needs some riddling to calm its flittering attention. This said, I can't recommend Inception enough. Though derivative in some respects, flawed in others, this is a great example of the kind of film that the major studios should be making more of. It's smart, coherent, and allows the audience to bring something to it. The action scenes are exciting, but don't dominate the finer points of the narrative, and in too rare an approach, it takes its time to tell a story that everyone can at least in part relate to. Inception has some fascinating ideas, some great performances, and manages to be spectacular whilst maintaining a huge degree of restraint and maturity.